the idea was, okay, why don't we just teach a computer to listen to music like humans do, and then listen to all the music that's out there. And based on that, maybe that'll help us find, this teenage girl or guy in their bedroom in like Kolkata or in Indonesia or in Bogota in Colombia. And then kind of course, so instead of like, one person's gut feeling, we can look at kind of listening behavior across thousands of people, and in a way also just democratize that process for an artist getting discovered and being able to go to the next level.
Hi, my name is Sukanya Agrawal. I am one of the founders of A Humming Heart. Today I'm speaking with Ankit Desai, founder and CEO of LA-based Snafu Records. This is a label that was launched in early 2020. And last month, they announced the launch of two new tools that they're building called Blurry and Fine.Art. The most exciting thing about the label, though, is that their artist scouting is AI driven. Ankit is here to talk to us about all that and more. Hi, Ankit.
Hi, Sukanya. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. I'm very glad that you could make the time for this. Before we begin, though, I'd like to first congratulate you on closing a round of funding last month. It's great news.
Thank you. No, it's really nice, and it's going to help us keep doing, what we have been doing at hopefully at a bigger scale, and
Yeah.
and try to help more independent artists.
Yeah. So to begin with, actually, can you tell us about how you work, how the label works, and how you came up with the idea of using AI for artist scouting?
Yeah, for sure. I would say essentially the way the music industry is built today is it's possible for anyone to, as I'm sure everybody knows, it's possible for anyone to put their music out. um but that just makes it much harder for any single artist to get discovered in the right way. And of course, I think with the Humming Heart, you guys are also like addressing like a pretty big part of the challenge there. And I think what we realized was there's just so much music that's coming out every single day. I think it's something like 5 million, probably by this point it's more, songs that are out on Spotify every year. So the idea was, okay, instead of having gatekeepers in the traditional sense, in terms of like, you have to be in like these traditional music hubs and then know the right people, and then somebody decides to give you a chance. The idea was, okay, why don't we just teach a computer to listen to music like humans do, and then listen to all the music that's out there. And based on that, maybe that'll help us find this teenage girl or guy in their bedroom in like Kolkata or in Indonesia or in Bogota in Colombia. And then kind of course, so instead of like, one person's gut feeling, we can look at kind of listening behavior across thousands of people, and in a way also just democratize that process for an artist getting discovered and being able to go to the next level. And for us to be able to do that at a larger scale, I mean, the only option was we need to teach a computer to listen to music, essentially. And that's kind of where the AI comes in, where
Right.
yeah, we need to train the computer.
Right. So when you say that you're training the computer, what are you training the computer to find? What are you looking for with AI?
So it's a good question. I would say really what we're looking for is, does this artist have an audience, and does this audience really engage with this artist, and what's the potential for us to help grow the audience for this artist. It's that
Right.
simple. And then from there we try to look at, okay, how quickly is this artist growing, how passionate are the fans when so we apply a technique called sentiment analysis to look at how passionate the actual words are that people use when describing the artist. We look at the structure of the music and how it compares to what's working and what's not. And we give us, we essentially give a pretty good judgment on whether this artist is likely to break through the noise in the near future or not. So that's kind of how we how we do it.
So when you're looking at some of these metrics, how how actively or how important are charts there, or how important are Spotify playlists there, the position of a song on a playlist, or say Billboard charts? Do they factor in
I
at
think
all?
I think it's very important. I mean, not Billboard charts maybe because you already like you've already like grown so much by that point, but
Yeah.
just by virtue of being on a chart or on a playlist, that gives you
Mm.
an audience, right? So that's like
Right.
one piece of this two-piece puzzle. Like the first is like getting in front of the audience, and
Right.
the two is the second part is how many people from that audience do you convert into your fans, right?
Right.
And that's and essentially those two are the metrics that we're really looking for. Like how many people is this artist being exposed for today, and out of that, how many people is this artist by virtue of their music or their look or their story, how
Mm.
many kind of connect out of out of the ones you expose.
Right. We saw that singer-songwriter Raghav is releasing a song with Snafu Records on the 15th of this month. And we got curious as to how your algorithm picked up an Indian artist. If you can just talk about that.
Of course, no, he's Raghav is like such a great guy and like working with a great team as well. I think the algorithm or the tech that we built. I think one of the better parts of it is that it tries to stay away from kind of any geographical biases as well as much as we can. And so Raghav was one of the artists that just showed up, and of course as an Indian myself, I was like very happy that that he showed up on our radar. And since then, when we after we signed him, we saw that he has great music. Him and his team have a great vision for their career moving forward. I think it was a natural fit, and we're super happy to support and like continue this journey, and hopefully really help break Raghav not just in India but hopefully abroad in the future as well.
That's very exciting. We were very happy to see that he got this opportunity. Are you looking at India as an active? Are you actively looking at India as a potential scouting ground? Are there any other artists that you're working with?
Yes. So India, I think, of course, maybe I'm a little bit biased because of my background and I'm born and raised in Bombay. But I think, just also objectively as a music market, it's so interesting in India at the moment. Like especially independent music is really exploding. Obviously, I have like a soft spot for trying to like do my part to help Indian artists break through as well.
Right.
And so Raga was one of the first. There's another artist that we've been working with from even before that, a guy Arman Malik, and then we have a third artist called Ankit Desai, who we haven't gone out with yet. So we'll be putting out a song with him as well. So I think right now it really is a hotbed of activity, and it's only a matter of time before India has has one or more global music superstars that come out of there. Just like we've seen with the likes of J Balvin and Luis Fonsi in Latin America, or the likes of BTS or Blackpink in Southeast Asia.
Right.
I think everybody, and likewise in Africa. I think everybody's waiting for that star to emerge out of India, and we obviously want to throw our hat in the ring there.
That sounds very promising. Which makes me wonder, when you're running AI on the millions of songs that are coming out every week, uh, are you feeding that into the system? Are you looking for specific geographies or demographics, or is it as open as it can be?
I would say, we try to keep it as open as it can be, because a lot of the times, you ideally want the algorithm to flag things for you that you otherwise as a human maybe would not have
Right.
made a connection. But what we realize also is that we do need to be a bit more strategic. So even though, let's say, Dutch rap or like Russian hip hop is like doing really well, especially
Mm.
on platforms like Spotify,
Mm.
we don't know how much at this stage we can offer to those artists in terms of our expertise.
Right. Mm.
But so we definitely like narrow it down to the markets in which we feel like we have a know-how and where we can like really make a difference for those artists.
Mhm.
um but aside from that, we try to be like quite agnostic in terms of the genre, in terms of the, if there's an audience, if there's an audience of like however many thousands of people who are passionate about this sort of music or this sort of artists, who are we to gatekeep that in any way.
Right. I saw that on your website, there is a submission form as well. So, as an artist, I can also send you my music and see if you would be interested in supporting that. So, my question is that are you running the algorithm to sort through your submissions as well, or is that a human activity?
It's a hybrid, I would say. So, there's definitely like a first screening layer after you submit your music, and then but before we sign anything, we definitely like put it through our tech just to kind of get some insights in terms of
Mm.
where the pockets of listenerships are for this artist, how
Mm.
much this artist has grown over the last however many weeks, and where the potential is for this artist to grow even further. And so those things we definitely kind of like put through our tech platform to just um let's say at least confirm the gut feeling if there is one from our
Right.
A&R team.
So, eventually, there is some human intervention in the whole process.
There absolutely is, and I think I think most of us that work here as well, come from we didn't get into this industry to make like robotic music for robots to play for other robots, and
Yeah.
and I think like at the end of the day, music is always going to be, if it were up to me, like a human endeavor, and so I think the idea is just to use the technology for where it can be applied best, and to use, let's say, human ingenuity where that could be applied best. And
Mm.
so there definitely, you're spot on, there definitely is like a human element involved.
Interesting. Which brings me to my next question, which is that uh, algorithms in music or otherwise at large as well. One of the main criticisms of AI is that while it is set out to rely on data, it is intrinsically driven by biases because it is learning from human activity at the end of the day, and it carries on the biases or the discrimination which is inherent in humans. So, is that something that you're thinking of? Is that on your mind?
Absolutely, absolutely, and it's actually like it's a very hotly debated thing for us internally, because it
Mm.
also becomes like a philosophical question where
Yeah.
there's such a responsibility if you're going to kind of like if you're going to put something in front of a lot of people, and it's going to impact them in some way, the way that music does. I think it is a big responsibility, not just like you mentioned in terms of biases, but also in terms of, I think you guys would really maybe also relate to this, in terms of the the taste making that you're doing for people. It's very important that that you do that in like a responsible way as well,
Right.
because it really reflects the world that you want to contribute to. And it is definitely like very hotly debated here, like how we could always be doing it better. Just like I think just like humans a lot of the times have to undergo unconscious or subconscious bias training, to identify that and maybe like try to work against that. We try to do the same with algorithms, where if we see that something is coming up that maybe is a bit unjust or unfair, we try to like sort that out as soon as we can. But you're absolutely right, like it's not a problem that's going to be solved overnight. But we're definitely we've definitely implemented like ways to try to like battle it, and we'll keep doing that.
Right. I think you're right. I mean, even at AHS, that is something that we're very conscious about. And even though we're working at a smaller scale than you are, because you're working at a global level and we are, our coverage is limited to India, but within India itself, we have so many languages and so many styles of music. We try really hard to be inclusive like that. Yeah.
100%. 100%.
Uh, So now, moving slightly away from the label itself and speaking about the industry at large, uh, all the interviews that I've read of yours so far talk about uh, how forward thinking Snafu is, and that really comes off in your approach and in just the artists also that you've signed so far. So I'm curious to know what you think is the marker of success for a musician in this decade, decade that we're
Oof, that's a very. I think I would say if you are able to live off of your music, that's already like you've already made it. I think what in that like there is like a certain small percentage of artists that are able to actually like make it and like and live off of their music, and then they live very well off of their music. So
in.
I think I would say like one mark of a success would be if we can maybe change those market forces to like make it a at least as much more balanced as possible, where as many artists as possible are able to make a living off of their art. I think that would be a success. I think if artists are able to do deals and like live off their music on fairer terms than they generally get in the market today, I think that would also be a win. Um, and then I would say that as if artists are generally compensated by um, the platforms as well as consumers and tech companies in a much fairer way than they are today, I think that would also be like a win. We talk a lot about if you look at like the global music industry, um, which is I think something like the recorded music industry, something like $20 billion a year. And if you look at like the gaming industry, it's like something like 10 times bigger, right? And is it really that people that are passionate about gaming are 10 times more passionate about gaming than people who are passionate about music? No, I wouldn't say so. I think there's very very passionate music fans as well. It's just that we in the music industry need to be better at communicating the value that we bring to artists and to consumers. So I think like on a macro scale, like those would be kind of my that would be my wish list for like the next decade. I think if we can make progress on those goals, I think we'll already be in a much much better and much more equitable music industry in 10 years. And I will add that the biggest opportunity for making those changes actually comes from emerging markets such as India,
Right.
um, because the methods of consumption are changing so much, and there isn't as much legacy infrastructure from before. So I definitely think that the change can come from a place like India.
That's an interesting way of looking at it. Let me rephrase my question now and ask you, what do you think is a marker of success for a song now? Because that's what essentially the algorithm is doing for you. Uh, what would be a marker of success, potential success of a song?
I would say, I mean, it really depends also like where you are in your artist life cycle. But if you're an
Right.
artist just starting out, let's
Hmm.
say like first million streams is like it's like it's a stage where where you can confidently say, okay, I have an audience. Your first 10 million streams is where for a song is where you can say, okay, we not only have an audience, but like um this is something that like really has much wider potential. And I think at like 100 million streams, then you would say, okay, I'm now like a really successful artist.
Right. 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 Which brings me to fine art, the new tool that you guys are working on and are going to launch very soon, I hear.
Yeah, that's
Uh,
true. We've done our first couple of deals.
okay.
Done our first couple of deals for fine art, and yeah, and then we'll be publicly launching it in probably like later this autumn.
So can you talk about it a little more, how it works? Because from what I understand, it's like an artist can invest in another artist's career.
Exactly. So the idea is very much, it actually like sprang from the thought that of course like we know a lot of artists who are at the beginning of their career, and we also
Mm,
know a lot of artists who have quote unquote made it.
right.
um and generally it's very binary that if you're at the beginning of the career, you have a quite uneven cash flow. So it's like very uncertain in terms of like, you'll get an advance, but then you never know like when the next advance is coming, and the songs need to work, etc., etc. And if you've made it and you're on the other side, then basically, like, every royalty check that you get is not going into paying your bills. Essentially, it's just going into your savings account or whatever. And so the idea was essentially, can we create a service that kind of matches these two sides of the equation, where artists who maybe are relatively well off and established have the chance to participate in the success of the next generation, and these up and coming artists from the next generation who maybe need like a small advance in order to buy a new guitar or pay for studio time, or pay for their recording, etc., 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 can get it on very, very artist friendly terms, generally also help to be financed by someone who's been through that journey that they're on.
Right.
And so that was essentially the idea, that can we just make it like very, very easy for artists that need financing to get it on good terms.
Right. So, but logistically speaking, how does it work? How does an artist A invest in artist B?
So essentially it's for, let's say, artist A, which is the investor.
Hmm.
uh, that's essentially a deal that they do with us, where they say that, okay, I'm willing, I know that you find artists with your algorithm. I think it's very interesting, hopefully, and here I see the results, and I'm willing to take the risk to kind of like invest with you guys into upcoming artists. And then for artist B, the one that's looking for financing, essentially, if you have if you're making like a certain amount of streams, a certain amount of like income from your royalties every month,
Hmm.
essentially we will have a website where you can go up and go like, this is my artist name. We are able to um uh let's say estimate how much money that you're going to make over the rest of the year, over the next couple of years, for example, from these songs. And then we'll essentially, like, you get an offer, and it'll say, okay, we think, Sukanya, you're going to make, I don't know, X amount over the next 2 years. Here's what we're willing to like offer you upfront for that already.
Right.
um and then it's generally like quite straightforward, that
Hmm.
once that
Hmm.
period is once that period is over, then then everything reverts. So once that amount is paid back from your royalties, like that, it reverts. And so there isn't, at the moment, there isn't a direct connection between artist A who's investing and artist B who's getting the investment. It's
Right.
for us, it's because we're the ones doing that matchmaking job of
Hmm.
artists who want to invest in other artists, and
Hmm.
other artists who need investment, essentially.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
that's where the algorithm becomes the matchmaker.
Hmm. The other tool that you're building out, which is called Blurry, is also trying to match make artists. In this case, they work as collaborators, right?
Exactly. And that came from our realization that generally, when we have an artist that's starting, or a song that's starting to take off and do well, there's a huge panic the next day, because we are like, okay, what's the next song now? And it's excuse me, and that's been like the exact same thing at every label that we've worked at. um and so that process of finding your next song or your next collaborator as an artist today is like very, very old, very antiquated, um just takes very long, and generally not very smooth. So essentially the idea is, can we just smoothen out the process for artists finding their next song or the next collaborator? Yeah, we just think we know so many great songwriters, all world class from around the world, and why don't we just take like all their best unreleased songs, put them on a platform, and then kind of allow the quality of the music to speak for itself, and maybe they can, that can help those songs, and those artists find a home for those songs.
Right. Actually, we just did a feature on how there have been more collaborations, at least among the Indian artists. There have been more collaborations during the pandemic. because until now they were kind of limited in their small pockets in their geographies.
Mhm.
But when they were restricted to their rooms, but and everything went digital, they started looking outside of their limited scopes for more collaborators, for people to work with, and not just musicians, but create all sorts of creative artists. So, do you also see sort of a spike in collaborations?
I would say one of the best ways for independent artists out there today is to collaborate. And I think with the with the advent of obviously TikTok in the rest of the world, and Reels and similar in India,
Mm,
um, as well as just I guess this entire mobile native generation,
mm,
I think the best and almost cost effective way to get in front of new people is to collaborate.
right, right. That makes a lot of sense. Uh, One last question, and then I'll let you go. You on the website, on the Snafu website, you talk about how you're trying to put the artist back in the driver's seat.
Mhm.
Uh, what can you tell us about your efforts there?
Well, that's the thing, right? I think that what the first place that we've just tried to start is on the deal, where we try to make the deal more transparent. It's a lot shorter as well than like a typical contract that tends to be like 20 pages. Our deals are about 3 to 4 pages most of the time.
Mm,
Um, the terms as well tend to be a lot friendlier.
mm,
Um, and then, and then, of course, within reason, I would say that generally when you sign to most labels, they want to have the final say in terms of kind of like the sort of music that you put out, how your branding should be, how you should look, how you should act, etc., etc.
right.
And the reason that we're able to like go on a different path is the way we find them is through the technology. And the way the
Mm,
technology finds them is that they already have a group of people who are reacting to exactly what that artist is doing. So so we're a lot more confident like allowing the artist to kind of like be the creative director of their own project.
mm,
um and we're quite clear that we are there to help amplify the artist's voice, not necessarily change it unless it's not
mm.
working.
Great. I think that's a great note to end this conversation on. Everything that you've just told us sounds very interesting, very promising for the bigger scheme of where the industry is headed, and very excited to see how you finally enter the Indian market. All the best for Raghav's next song. Hope that goes well, and wish you luck with the launch of Fine Art and Blurry as well. I it sounds like these will turn into very useful tools for independent artists around the world. Thank you once again.
Hi guys.
Bye.